rural school, but it had a high population, and they relied on something called Success for All. Those of you that are in elementary school, you know that Success for All is basically scripted reading. The requirement was that they had to do an hour and a half of Success for All per day, and it had to be documented, and it had to be sent back to the State Department, who uploaded it to the federal government. It could not be changed. So that curriculum, in order for them to get the money, it had to be there. Something that I haven't seen in Oklahoma yet, but I think it's worth mentioning, we had something in Ohio that was called Channel 1. Channel 1 is a news broadcast that the kids had to sit through in the morning. They had to sit through it for 10 minutes in the morning, and if they did, every single classroom got a flat screen TV and a DVD player. So with that being said, you know, there are catches and there are strings attached. State sources of income. This is going to be property taxes, sales taxes, and income taxes. Easy to follow. Where does the state money go? Unfortunately, state money goes to large urban school districts. It's where it goes because they have disparities. So if you think that state money is going to help you fund your rural school district, you are sadly mistaken. If population is leaving urban environments and moving to the suburbs, meaning the urban environments aren't growing, all of that state money is going to go to sustain the urban environments. This is a problem for you if you're a principal at a rural school because you're not going to get that money and you're not going to see that money. You're going to have to rely on federal and local. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the state level. I want to note this because, you know, once again, my political background, I'm very supportive of gambling. And I think gambling could be used potentially to help and grow schools. The states that give money for gambling are Virginia, North Carolina, Texas, South Carolina, and California right now. Nevada does too, but Nevada also uses it more as a reduction of property tax, which does benefit the schools, so it's not directly given to schools, it's indirectly given to schools. Think about these states and think about how well they pay their teachers. So you think about that, you take any perspectives you want on that. So local sources of income, this comes from local property taxes. Your homes are assessed, and then you have to take a look at the assessment, and then that's how you're taxed. And your home value could go up, it could go down. Your taxes, they go to pay for the schools. Cigarettes and alcohol are also taxed. Once again, you know, let me surprise myself in moving to Oklahoma. I lived in a state where cartons of cigarettes, packs of cigarettes were $8 or $9. I'm not a smoker, thank God I'm not a smoker, but they were $8 or $9. When we drive through Missouri and we see a pack of marbles for $3.50, we wonder where that money is going to, because that's the money that in Pennsylvania they use to fund the schools. So, you know, that's something to consider. Sales tax to a lesser extent is important, but, you know, we have high sales tax in Oklahoma. So 10 steps of budgetary success is the last thing we're going to talk about in this chapter. The first thing you have to keep in mind is you have to determine the allotment. You have to know how much you can spend in each category. Some funds are more restricted. You need to start with Title I, ELL, and SPED. Do that first, then go back to the extracurriculars and instruction. Fixed expenditures are going to be the same every single year. You've got to put those aside first. If you do that, you're going to be effective. All stakeholders need to be involved, but you still have to be in charge. So be collaborative, but be in charge. You have to make the final decision. If there's a budgeting error, it's going to fall on you. So potential expenditures, things that you have to do. Look at what happened in the past. Don't reinvent the wheel. Know what's necessary, and try to help and monitor everything else where necessary. So cut back when you need to cut back. Do it in a way that does not cause your faculty to be upset. The central repository idea I liked from the textbook because it said all supplies are managed by a person. Once again, this is where I would put your counseling secretary, if you're fortunate enough to have one, so they can monitor and supply the teachers. So you're not spending money on whiteboard markers, pencils, things that, you know, could be given to extracurricular programs. Keep your faculty happy. That's important. Avoid continued debts. If you have an activity that is a loser, meaning that, you know, the school district loves it and, you know, it's supported, but every year it loses, you know, $5,000 or $6,000, you got to find a way to cut that. You have to, because then you're taking away from other things that could be making the school money or that could be sustaining a program. If a program is lacking interest, you need to have the guts to say, I'm ready to cut this activity. If it's not working, you need the guts to get rid of it. Every budget should be based on a plan. You have to prioritize instructional goals and activities. Forecast what's coming next, know the climate, and know what's coming ahead. If you can't do that, that's a problem. Set goals, try to determine, you know, what's going to happen in the next school year. Try to figure out what's important right now, but might not be tomorrow. If you know that you're gonna build a new technology Wi-Fi infrastructure in your building, you know this is gonna cost you a lot of money, but then you know that you're probably not gonna need to do it again for 3 or 4 years. Computers in most school districts are upgraded every 4 to 5 years. Unless you buy Macs, then it's probably gonna be more 8 or 9. So if you know they're gonna have a big expenditure one year for computers, you shouldn't have it for the next year. Give it to the site-based committee, get their opinions, and figure out what they have to say about it as well. Determine if the budget is realistic. If it's not realistic, then it's not going to work. Ask your secretary. Please ask your secretary, because they've seen more than you have. Get their feedback, see if anything could change in future years, and move on from there. Whatever the budget suggests, you need to follow it. And if you want to change it, you need to share that with your staff and department meetings. You need to show that you're willing to follow through on decisions. So that's it. I'm going to talk about the national standards in the next chapter, which you've covered in leadership theory and the principalship. So I'm going to briefly visit them in terms of school finance, and then chapter 3 kind of gives you an idea of the budgeting process. So this is lecture 1. I have 2 more that I think are worth you watching. Thank you.